Attention all students. Class is in session. With your hosts, Pat and George. That'll teach you.
Hello and welcome back to That'll Teach You, the podcast that aims to teach you all the stuff that school just didn't. I'm your co-host, Patrick Johnson, and with me today I've got George Lamone. George, how are you?
Mate, I'm outstanding today.
Beautiful.
Mate, I'm excited. We've got a good guest on today in Matthew Staples from FuturePoint Wealth. He's going to be talking all things financial planning, what a financial planner does, superannuation, wealth creation, and all you need to know about sort of approaching closer to retirement. So anyone that's younger, looking to focus on their super, or approaching middle age, looking to prepare for retirement, it's going to be perfect for them.
Mate, it's one for everyone today. Let's get stuck into it.
Let's go.
That'll teach you.
Matt, welcome. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. It's good to be here.
It's the way. Great to have you on board.
Yeah.
Matt, for those of you who don't know, tell us a little bit about exactly what you do. Let us know what FuturePoint Wealth, should I say, does, and give our listeners a little insight into the world of financial planning.
Yeah, so I'm a financial planner at FuturePoint Wealth, which is our business. So we do a lot of work with clients and small businesses around financial planning. FuturePoint Wealth is quite a new brand. We've only been around for a couple of years now. But we've got 5 or so advisors working within the business. So, plenty of experience there, which is great for our clients. In terms of, financial planning, what we do a lot of work around superannuation, which I think we're going to maybe have a bit of conversation today about.
Definitely.
A lot about wealth protection, wealth creation, and, a lot of cash flow modelling scenarios for clients as well.
Yeah, I think financial planning is so underrated in the financial services world. I mean, you think
Definitely.
Financial services, you think broker, you think accountant, right? But I think really at the centerpiece of a lot of that is a financial planner, because, I mean, what I tell, and George as well, what we tell a lot of our clients is that you often have to see a financial planner to figure out what the best strategy to go down or which path to go down is going to be best long term. Mm-hmm. We constantly can make finance happen, but you guys are really the brains behind which way goes where. And then I feel like accountants, brokers flow on from that and actually put it into practice. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think so, yeah. I think financial planning, we're really about planning for the future. So a lot of people, kind of might get caught up in short-term goals, which there's nothing wrong with it. But as a financial planner, we're looking past that. We're looking medium and longer term. So when people look to maybe purchase a property, it's probably something already on their mind. Same with maybe seeing an accountant for their tax return. So financial planning, we really sort of engage with the client to not only look at the shorter-term goals, but, set some goals for the future as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, on the podcast, we sort of aim to teach people things they didn't learn in school. And I don't think at any point we went through superannuation. I don't think we went through how to plan a basic strategy for wealth creation, anything like that. I mean, how did you get into financial planning?
Yeah, well, I guess I always kind of had a passion for finances, just, the economy, how it works. It's a big beast. So, I agree with you. Through schooling, we didn't learn too much about, retirement savings and, even in some respect, credit cards, good and bad debt.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell into it and always had that passion. And then obviously, studied it through university and ended up being a financial planner, which I really enjoy. So, always had a bit of a passion, but always wanted to sort of have some sort of a career in it.
So I guess one of the more common misconceptions that we see is that financial planners are always seen to be for people who are wealthy and obviously have more money and whatnot. Can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit in terms of whether or not that's true?
Oh, it's definitely not true. I think a lot of people have, the mindset that you can only, do certain things and make more money when you have, a lump sum of money already there, or you do have a lot of money in the account. Financial planning is a lot more than that. We really focus on, catering our advice to the specific person. whether they have a lot of money or they don't. It's really about sort of looking at their goals and objectives. So, that's the main goal for us is really getting an understanding of the clients, what they're looking to do.
Yeah.
And then we sort of look at their financial situation after that, so we're not too, just because you don't have a lot of money doesn't mean that financial planning is not for you.
Well, I think
Yeah, of
that's
course.
half of the people you help is people that don't have a lot of money right now. You're planning for the future so that eventually they do have a lot of money. And that's why financial planning is so underrated, because you can actually help anyone.
And then I guess I see like a lot of the clients, and Paddy's in the same boat too, but a lot of the clients that we deal with that sort of move into sitting down with you and seeing you, it sort of revolves around super. And what they can do with the super. A lot of people don't really know much about super to begin with, especially the younger sort of demographic, because it's not something that you need to rely on until later on in life.
I remember when I first started at McDonald's when I was 14 and they made me sign up to Host Plus Super.
Was it Host Plus?
Yeah.
I thought it was like, it was that egg, MLC.
Oh, I don't know, mate.
The
Maybe,
symbol was like an egg. Do you remember that? It was
maybe
like,
they gave us different supers. Maybe it's a Macca's conspiracy or something. But I remember vividly it was Host Plus. And I had no idea what a super was, anything like that. And you basically just signed a form because you wanted to start working and getting shifts. And, I think it's such a missed part of growing up and getting into the workforce. Before you join the workforce, you should understand what super is and why it's so important.
Definitely.
It's a really good point you bring up, both you actually there, is that, when you work in the pubs or in the bars or in cafes when you're younger, as you said, you don't really know what super is. It's 50 years down the track, so you don't really care, to be honest. But on that point, you probably work in a few different jobs. So, a lot of the time your employer sets up, 2, 3, 4 supers for you.
Yeah.
So, like a good tip there is to actually have a look at seeing how many super funds you have open and making sure that you can consolidate those into one. And the big reason behind that is so you can save on your fees and costs.
Yes.
So, instead of paying 4 lots of fees, you're only paying 1 lot of fee.
Yeah.
I definitely highly recommend, even if you're young, to get out there, have a look at your supers, get a bit of an understanding and make sure that you don't have, 5 or 6 ones from McDonald's back in the day set up.
I can definitely note that I was one of them. I think at some point I had 4 or 5
I think
different
we all were,
supers again.
so.
I think, I'll be the first to ask for all those out there that are maybe listening to this and sort of going, oh, yeah, super, I've heard that word. I sort of know what that is. But should we start at the basics and just give people what is superannuation? Why is it important? And why should people start actually having a look at their super?
Yeah, so basically superannuation is a way to build up your savings for retirement.
Yep.
And you're generally building up super during your working life, okay? So the real idea of super is that when you do get to your retirement age of when you do decide to retire, you can actually start drawing down those savings that you've been building up throughout your working life. In one respect, it's to be able to be self-funded so you can then enjoy the retirement that you want.
Yeah.
It gives everyone the opportunity to build that when they're younger all the way through to a bit older. So it's a great sort of way for everyone to be able to contribute to it.
Yeah.
And then work towards that retirement goal.
I think the reason people don't pay attention to it is because it comes out of their pay before they actually get their pay, right? So a lot of people don't see it as their money yet. And I think that could be sort of a reason why there's not a lot of focus on super. Is there any strategies or anything like that to people in terms of different funds? Is there things to look at or compare, or what do you guys see is the biggest sort of mishap when it comes to super, or what should people really be aware of?
Yeah, I think just to touch on that first point as well is that, as you said, it's already paid into your super. So, your employer is mandated to put 10.5% of your gross income into super. So you don't actually really see that. So I would probably be pretty confident saying a lot of people, if they had the opportunity to take that into their bank account, would probably take it until they might start understanding what super is. And, you might have a different answer to that at age 60 or 65 when you do retire.
Yeah, definitely.
There's heaps of different products out there. So it can be a bit of a minefield, choosing the right one for you. But, what to look at is looking at the costs that you're getting charged in the super fund. That's something that we can control. we can look at the costs and we can compare them to other products and then decide on which one's the best. Another good thing to look at as well is looking at the insurances within your super. Right. So as we sort of talked about before, when your employer sets up a super fund for you, you're automatically going to have insurances in the superannuation fund. So if you have 4 accounts open, you've got 4 lots of insurances that you probably don't necessarily need. So that means you're paying more fees and premiums for what you need. So that's just a couple little things or tips to have a look at.
Yeah, right. And how important is insurance? Because a lot of people out there, in terms of, you're obviously talking about if you're injured or you can't work or anything like that, is what I'm assuming that you're referring to. But why is it important? I guess when we're younger, we all think we're invincible, nothing's going to happen to us, especially Paddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my extent of knowledge of super is same age, same income. So I mean, like you wouldn't, from those ads, even to George's point, you wouldn't even know that your super had insurances, and if so, what insurances are in super? Yeah, good question, I think.
Yeah, George. It is, and it's really important to know as well. Insurance is a big piece as well. You really want to ensure, I guess the whole core of financial planning revolves around your ability to earn an income. So, in fairness, without you earning an income, a lot of these, goals of traveling and, setting a deposit for a home go away without that income coming in. So, there is certain products out there that you can protect your income if you're unable to work for a period of time. And that will just ensure that you get a regular income coming in to sort of support your needs.
Yeah.
And there's a few other types of insurances that you can get in super as well. But where we kind of come in is we review those insurances with people, see if they're applicable for them, and then work with them to, see how much cover they want as well.
I think that's a good point, because a lot of people listening to this will be like, well, how do I even start looking at what insurances I've got, what super fund I'm with, what fees? Where do I find that information? I mean, there's 2 options, right? You either come and talk to financial planners, or, is there somewhere people can jump on and have a quick look at this for themselves?
Yeah, I think you can jump onto the ATO MyGov website now if you have an account there, and you should be able to see all of the super funds you have available. Yeah. So that's a quick win just to see, I don't think many people from back when they're 16, 18 years of age are going to know where their supers are hiding. So
you might get a nice surprise.
You might have a little bit more than you thought. So, but yeah, jump onto that MyGov. That will give you hopefully an outline of all the super funds you have. And that's a good starting point. And then once you know what, the actual providers are, you can then hopefully go set up a portal online and access all the important information.
What's the downside of having more than one super? Is there benefits of putting them all into one? If someone logs on to this portal and then goes, wow, I've got 4 supers, is that okay to leave it like that? Or, should they do something about it?
Yeah, you can have as many supers as you want. Probably not recommended, because you are, as we sort of touched on before, paying more fees and costs within each of those super funds. That's the big one. The other one as well is that you're probably going to have that default insurance in each of those super funds as well, unless you cancel, which you're paying for. Yeah. It might be, you might actually need those insurances, but you might not. So then you're actually paying for something you don't really need. Yeah. So it's a good idea just to hopefully, or try and consolidate them into one. Firstly, even from an admin point of view, you only have to deal with one provider, and you know where it is. So,
I mean, just to give an example of what you mean when you say fees and costs, right? So, for example, let's say the difference between Super A and Super B is you save $500 a year. People would go, so what? It's in my super fund. Not much you can do about it. It's $500, but I don't see that money. But if you're saving $500 a year and you're 25 now and you're going to retire at 65, that's 40 years of $500 a year that could be in your savings for your retirement.
Correct.
That's right. That sort of stuff really adds up, and that's why I guess time is the thief of your own cash there. If you put it off and put it off and put it off, it's all that money that you could be doing just by being proactive.
Yeah, that's right. And to that point as well is that $500 you're saving each year is also being invested in super. So we're investing that money or, in the stock market or property where we're hopefully growing that money each year as well. So it's not only just saving on the fees, we're actually growing that extra money that you're saving too.
Yeah, right. So that's always the case, is it? Because it's good that you touched on that, because I was thinking that as well. So obviously your employees putting super contributions every week, month, whatever it might be, into your account. They're not just sitting there. Those funds aren't just sitting there until retirement. They're invested in various different areas.
Yeah, that's right.
In order to grow your portfolio.
Yeah, correct. So it's a big part of your super as well. A lot of people think it just sits in super and then, in 30, 40 years time, you've got, a certain amount of money that you can spend. There's different assets that you can actually invest in within your super, and that will be dependent on which product and which super provider you go with. There's many different ways you can do, invest in a little bit of property.
You touched on fees, and we sort of went into insurances. Now, another thing financial planning do really well is look at how to, one, obviously grow, build wealth, but two, how to protect it, which is a big piece on, if you come to us and you're buying a property or, an investment property, anything like that, the big question becomes, what happens if you lose your income and you can't pay the mortgage anymore? Or, what happens if you lose your income and you can't afford to feed your family or your kids, right? That's a big piece for you guys, where you've had some real success stories with people that you've helped as well. I think people don't understand the importance of that sort of protection until something bad happens.
Yeah, that's right. And once again, the younger generation and younger people generally think they're invincible, that nothing's going to happen to them. So, we've had a recent example where, a young client was in an accident or was hit by a car, unable to work for a prolonged period of time and still not working. But thankfully, we had a good plan. We put in some insurances and income protection in the background. He's got a couple of properties that he's still trying to pay off. So having that security of the income payments coming in each month, he's still able to sort of, live his life, pay for the expenses and then even, pay down the mortgage as well. So, if you think about it, if he didn't have any of that security, then he's maybe having to start selling some properties. It's kind of changing from his lifestyle that he wants to live.
And just the stress that would come from that, you're doing it for one, peace of mind, and if you have a family, you have kids, you're doing it for them as well. Sure. It's not just you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's right. Yeah, you've got to start thinking as well with a family. It's not just about yourself anymore in terms of, protecting yourself. You've got to think about, your partner, your kids. If something was to happen to you guys, how are you going to protect them going forward? So it's a not a fun conversation to have, but it's a really important one to have with everyone.
Matt, you were mentioning before, you said yourself, if super wasn't compulsory by an employer, most Australians would take that cash and put it in their pocket, which, I definitely agree with you. It's very tempting, which sort of raises a good point. A lot of people are self-employed and, they're their own employer. They might not be paying themselves super, that maybe they should be. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting point you make there. From an employer's point of view, building their business, especially if it's a small business, for the initial years, they're probably really focused on, putting all the money that they're earning back into the business to grow it. Yeah, naturally, as anyone is. So, as you said, they're probably not putting contributions into it now. So, probably down the future when they can look to access it, the balance isn't going to be as much as another, someone who is employed. I guess, from our point, ideally, you'd hope that they'd be putting in as an employer into their super. But in some respects as well, is that they are building up a big asset with their company or their business, which can potentially be used as, a mechanism to help fund their retirement in the future as well. So there's a couple of ways to look at it. Ideally, I'd like to see employers putting in for themselves. But probably the reality is that a lot of employers aren't probably putting in contributions.
Carter, are you paying yourself super? No comment.
He only just found out what super is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's snoozing over there. He's tired of the super chat.
He's actually just on FuturePoint Wealth's website booking an appointment with Matt Staples for next week. So, I think it's definitely, if you are self-employed and you're not asking yourself those questions, I think it's definitely worth, considering or having a chat to a professional about, because these are the types of things that, short-term gain, long-term pain type.
And it's I've got a number of friends that are self-employed and maybe not that it's something that you think about within the first 2 or 3 years or whatnot, because you're just focused on growing the business. But then when you're not thinking about it in the first 2 or 3 years, then you sort of just completely forget about it down the track. So I think it's really important to make sure that you've got a goal of maybe, I don't know, after the first few years is starting to pay yourself super, because it is very important.
Definitely.
And crucial to retirement.
I mean, one thing just to round out this conversation on super and retirement is, I guess the question you've got to ask yourself is, what salary are you on now? How is that going paying your bills in general? When you retire and you'll no longer have that salary or that income, what amount of money are you going to need yearly to, one, pay your bills, and two, enjoy your life? I think that is a good aim for your super, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, is that sort of the point people should be thinking about in terms of what they get when they retire or from their super fund?
In terms of when they retire, how much they want to live on?
Yeah. Is that something to think about as well?
Yeah, it definitely is. A lot of people, or you might have heard a lot of people saying, to retire comfortably, you might need, $500,000 or $1 million.
Yeah.
That's last me a year.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. It comes back to, how you want to live your life in retirement.
Yeah.
Do you spend a lot of money? Do you want to go on holidays, every year or two? So that's where we sort of come in and have that conversation about how much you need to sort of help you live that lifestyle.
Most people wouldn't know where to start, in terms of even if you told me how much do I need to live on in retirement, I would tell you, ideally $50 million would be nice. But
the way you live, you'll need a bit.
But how do you know where to start is the point there. So, I think you guys play a really vital role in setting those expectations and something to work towards in retirement.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's right. We have the conversation and show them a few options of how to build, once again, the earlier you start, the easier it's going to be for when you do close in a retirement.
Yeah.
From a psychological point of view as well, you've been working for 40, 50 years and accumulating your assets.
Yeah.
It's a really big mind shift when you actually start retiring and now de-accumulating and actually, using your assets to fund your lifestyle. So it's not only sort of working out how much you might need and building that up, but it's also sort of taking you through the changes of actually, drawing upon those assets when you do decide to retire.
Yeah.
I think what else do financial planners do really well is part of the exciting part of your business and your way of life is actually creating wealth for people. It's all well and good protecting their assets, protecting their income, thinking about what money they're going to have when they retire. But a lot of people don't realize you guys can build wealth in a shorter term and through different avenues have something they can use. Like we've had people that have come talk to us, they don't quite have money for a deposit yet. We've sent them to you put a plan in place and, in the next 5 years, 10 years, they're going to have a lot more to use if their goal is to purchase a place.
Yeah, that's right. It's probably more the exciting part. The exciting conversation is, wealth creation, not protecting your income and insurances. So yeah, that's where we sort of work really closely with you guys and the broking team to, especially as you said, Paddy, when clients come to you that might not have a deposit ready now, but might have one in 1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And we sort of work with them, give them a bit of education and, go through a few strategies to help them potentially build that deposit up a bit quicker to get them on that property ladder a bit quicker as well. So yeah, there's many different options we can do. But, working together and helping the client, I think that provides them with, a lot of good education going forward.
Just back to the whole wealth creation side, because that is something that is quite attractive,
Yeah.
That's something that's probably an easy conversation to have because a lot of people want to know the quickest way to make money, right? Give us a run through of what sort of wealth creation avenues there are. I mean, one that comes to my mind is shares. But what else? What other sort of options do people have when they come and speak to you?
Yeah, well, I guess the first one that we sort of talked about is super, but that's quite defined to building.
Yeah, we've had enough super, mate. We're over the boring old super. People want to know.
George wants that Ferrari, so we're going back on it.
You don't make friends with super.
Yeah, it's true.
So as we've already talked on that one, as you said, investing in shares, which is, investing in companies.
Yeah.
That's more sort of investing in the stock market. A big part of that as well is diversifying the portfolio. So not only investing in shares, but you can invest in some commercial property, some fixed interest and cash as well.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way to build your wealth up for the future. A big benefit of that as well is that it is quite liquid, those assets, generally speaking. So, if you do need money, a bit quicker, you can sell that down and potentially have it in cash. Where I guess when you compare it to property in some sense, you can't sell, 3 bricks in the house to sort of, get a bit of coin.
I guess that's almost can be a negative thing, can't it? Because I guess that's driven by emotion and whatnot as well.
It can be.
Yeah.
And kind of, the real benefit of having, an advisor is to sort of take the emotion out of it for you.
Yeah. Good point.
Because, a lot of decisions that aren't probably the greatest decisions are made on emotion. So once again, sticking to your plan, understanding how long you're investing for is really important.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in. We have a lot of conversations with clients during the last couple of years when we did see, the stock market drop quite a bit, and just provide a lot of comfort to everyone knowing that, we set a plan in motion. This is just a bit of a hurdle, but everything will come back eventually. So, that's one avenue as well. And then another big avenue is that, property, the one, what you guys deal in.
Yeah.
Once again, that's a great avenue of building your wealth, paying down your debt and increasing the equity in your home, is a great way to build wealth because, in the future, we can actually use some of that equity to potentially, purchase another property or even, use some of that equity to get in the stock market as well.
But the good thing about that asset, and I guess it's the same with the stock market, but over time, the asset's working for you in terms of it's appreciating in value whilst you pay down the debt. That's a good point to make about property. The other question I sort of had for you, so if someone can say, just to give people a practical example, let's say they had $50,000 in savings, they could come to a financial planner and say, what's the best way to spend this 50,000 in order to grow it effectively? And then if they knew nothing about shares, nothing about stock market, anything like that, that's what you guys guide them? Do you present to them what shares to buy, or how does it work on a practical sort of scenario?
So as a scenario there, once again, the initial conversation would be around, why are we building the wealth up? Everyone wants to be rich.
Yeah.
We all want that yacht overseas, but, we got to have some reasons as why you want to buy it. And the reason I say that is because that builds into, how long we're investing for. What's the time frame of investing? If we're investing for sort of 3 to 6 months, we're probably going to take a bit more of a conservative approach with that money because you might need it in 6 months' time. But if we're looking, investing over a 3, 5, 10-year period, that kind of opens, the world up to a few more investments.
What would you say? What would you say is your biggest, as a financial planner? What are the biggest roadblocks or oppositions that people throw up to you when talking to you? What's the biggest? Oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do this, or I don't think I can do that. What would you say is the biggest throwbacks you get?
I think probably the biggest throwback is when we're talking around wealth creation and building up your wealth. Australians are very, very fond of property, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when we're trying to sort of achieve some other goals and diversify the whole portfolio, a lot of people don't have a lot of education in, stock markets and all of that. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a barrier, but it's definitely, providing some education for everyone and thinking sort of outside the picture.
If you're sitting there on a bit of cash out there and you're wondering what to do with it, and you're not quite sure you can afford to buy a house, or you're not quite sure what shares to buy, that's where financial planning's perfect as a starting point.
Yeah, that's right. And even if you don't have a cash balance to start with, we can even go back one step and work with you around your income and expenses, work on your cash flow to see where you can save some money and hopefully build that up at a quicker rate as well.
Well, Matt, I think that's been a lot of great information for our listeners. So thanks for coming on. If you could just leave everybody with one bit of advice or one hook as to why it is so crucial to come and at least talk to a financial planner initially, what would that be?
Well, I guess it's kind of, if you're wanting to achieve these goals and these objectives that you have over the shorter and longer term, we're really going to be able to help you guys, guide you on and provide you some options to be able to get to those goals a lot quicker. We always say, it's never too early or too late to start financial planning. So, I highly recommend having a chat with a financial planner, whether that's at FuturePoint Wealth or elsewhere, just to open the conversation and give you a few ideas and then they'll put you on good stead to going forward.
Perfect. Matty, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Probably best way is just head to the website, which is www.futurepointwealth.com.au.
Perfect.
On the website, it should give you a range of our services, and then the ability to book a meeting with one of the financial advisors. So that's
We'll
probably
put
the
that
easiest.
in the show notes for everyone too. So, and it'll be across our socials. If you do need to, or find them on LinkedIn, FuturePoint Wealth. You're very active in the LinkedIn space.
Got some good blogs coming
yeah,
up.
just on that, some real interesting articles that I've actually sat there and read and gone, they're 2-3 minute reads, but they're really quite informative. So even if you're not quite ready to speak to a financial planner, jump on, give them a follow on LinkedIn, and just do yourself a bit of reading.
Perfect.
Beautiful. All right, Matt, thanks for coming in, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.
Well, that'll just about do it for another episode of That'll Teach You. George, fantastic episode today.
Great episode, mate.
We covered a wide range of topics that I think's really going to help you guys out there to get stuck in for preparing for the future and having that initial conversation about all things financial planning.
Definitely, mate. Big thank you to our guest, Matt Staples. Of course, our listeners out there. Couldn't do it without yous. Our team as well, Sam the Lighting Man, Carter the producer, and my co-host, Patrick.
Yes, thanks all round, George. I mean, if you want to get in touch with Matt, his details will be in the show notes along with ours. If you've got any questions or other topics that you want to cover, please shoot us a message. Other than that, guys, I think it's time to remember, that'll teach ya.
That'll teach ya.